everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And it is finally
That
Thursday.
just cracks me up. And I'm Emily.
Why do you always laugh at that?
I think it's cute. Why can't I think you're cute?
Oh my gosh,
Look,
this
you're
is
turning
ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Yeah, I am turning red. I get turned green screen. It's making the whole screen freak out. That's funny.
Hey, Matt.
But I was saying it is finally Thursday because we have been bringing a few special editions on Tuesdays as well, because honestly, we are creeping so close to the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo. And so we have been taking these weeks talking to some of the vendors that are coming up to this expo.
Yeah, it's been an awesome few weeks. I mean, I think we're getting pretty close to the halfway point through our vendors, and through November now.
Through the ones that have signed up for the podcast.
Yeah. Through the ones that are coming and joining us for our podcast. So, but that means there's probably 6 or 7 weeks left only, and through the rest of November, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. You know, that's awesome. And at the end of the show, we're doing a giveaway.
It's okay. I didn't notice until the end of the show, and maybe nobody else did either.
We might just do a drawing anyway.
We just got so caught up talking about lithium technology because that is so relevant to every angler these days.
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness. I have to admit our green screen outline is like freaking out today, and it's like distracting me. So I hate to always bring
You always bring it up. You always bring it up.
Anyways, maybe it doesn't bother other people, but I guess we do always start with a fishing report, and we're already like 2 minutes into the show. We didn't even jump to that. But part of the reason for that is because last week our fishing looked a lot different than normal. So we were down in Cancun with family for a wedding. To be honest, we didn't just go for fishing. But when we were there, it's very hard to find a trip, especially when you're planning one abroad. You know, when you're planning a local trip and you can ask people, maybe your friends have been there, that's cool. But when you are planning something far away, I mean, that can be scary. And so, you know, we keep posting about it this week because we feel like blessed that we were able to find such a great place, that we had a great adventure. And if you are planning a trip to Mexico, or maybe start planning a trip to Mexico, right? And then check it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty awesome. Got to do a lot of things that we don't usually get to do here, and a lot of things that we do. It was a really kind of unique situation that we put ourselves in, and it was really fun.
And I do have to say, we posted at this point most of the fish pictures that we plan to share with you. We might still have a few more, but I think tomorrow we're going to share a little bit more about the rest of the adventure. We saw a lot of cool other stuff along the way. And so we're looking forward to sharing that as well.
Plus, we're traveling.
We're going to be traveling again this weekend. Yeah, that is absolutely true. So, you know, we're talking about Wisconsin Fishing Expo, but there's other expos that are coming up as well. One of them, I always mess up. I always say the Dakota Ice Angler Institute, but that's the wrong order of the words because I think it's Dakota Angler Ice Institute, right? And Todd has done an awesome job setting that up each year. And honestly, it feels so far away. So a lot of the people that go to that expo don't make it to the Wisconsin Fishing Expo and vice versa. But if you can, go to both because it's a ton of fun.
Mm-hmm. That's why we're going.
That's true. And actually, I don't think today's guest is going to Sioux Falls, but an opportunity that you will be able to see him in Oshkosh. So we will ask all those questions and more. But if you guys have questions or comments or things along the way, definitely put that in the comment box. Otherwise, I do want to say Josh was talking about doing that giveaway at the end. And I think the way to be entered into that is just put any comment throughout the show, or just come and say hi on the Crappie Junction page. Yeah, so I know some of you might be listening or watching or tuning in through the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo page, and that's awesome. And thank you for doing that. But if you want to be included in the actual giveaway, it has to be on the Crappie Junction page, because that's honestly just how we keep track of it.
And just do it after the show's done. Just go back and make a comment. I keep the drawing till afterwards. So
until, I think you usually do 9 p.m.
I usually do 9, but whenever you get to it.
Okay, well, that's Josh is the one doing this, so that's what I'm going with.
You're the boss.
Oh my goodness. For this show, we have a different boss, I guess. Tonight, the boss is, I guess, Ryan Ebert. So thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Ryan.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if we've ever bumped into you other than this podcast, so it's great to meet you. For
Hmm.
other people who have not met you yet, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Here in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. Been in Wisconsin my whole life. I've been an artist for the last 20 years professionally. I spent 11 years in the publishing industry, and then the last 6 years been freelancing on my own. Kind of a wide range of things from videography, photography, graphic design, which is what my degree's in, and then kind of doing my own thing too with the fish decoys and apparel and kind of all sorts of fishy art.
I really like what you were saying, like, oh, I've been an artist for like, do you say like 11 or 20 years or something like that? But I'm
Yeah,
laughing because are you, some people believe that you're like born an artist or you're not. So, I mean, I guess is
right.
that something that you feel like, have you just been doing art your whole life? This is natural to you, or you had to really work at this?
Oh, I've definitely, yeah, I say 20 years professionally, almost 20 years. And then, yeah, obviously all through school, growing up and, kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit my whole life and doing different woodworking and things like that through high school and selling things. And, but yeah, truly an artist, I guess, quote unquote, for the last 20 years. So,
Well, and I love that you brought up high school a little bit too, because to be honest, that's the other thing I was going to reference is, one of the things I love about expos is meeting people with different talents, and so we talk all the time about ways that people get involved in the fishing industry that aren't necessarily like a tournament angler or like a lure designer, because although those jobs may be around, they're few and far between and hard to get, and so I'm not saying that like your job is easier, right? But that's a different talent and different knack that, especially high schoolers, they're there maybe in a woodworking class, maybe in an art class. And I think that your job honestly is something that they can pull inspiration from as a way to, fuse hobbies and interests and create a career.
right. Right. Yeah, definitely. I couldn't have just jumped into the freelance, like straight out of high school or college. I did the publishing industry first and actually, you know, made money and then built kind of my business on the side. And then once I felt ready to make the leap on my own, after, like I said, a decade, then felt more comfortable doing it. And kind of like we were talking before the show, weathered the whole pandemic and having a small business through that. And because a lot of my photography, videography stuff is event based, and so that was fun through the pandemic, but coming out good now. So
And then one of the things that you had mentioned is being, doing freelance work. I mean, when it comes to being an artist, what does that look like? Because I can imagine like freelance writer, but what does freelance art look like?
sure. So I freelance for a couple different marketing agencies, like out of Madison and here in Fort, and a lot of stuff in the agriculture industry, which is where I was working in publishing. So I have a lot of connections there, and grew up on a small farm. So just that's kind of where a lot of that connections come from for the design and photography side of things.
And I didn't prepare Josh for this, so I'm sorry. I said I'm not going to put anybody on the spot and ask hard things, but can you pull up his Instagram? Can we like scroll through that as we're talking about this? Look at your face. I know we always do that through the
Um,
computer if that's too hard, or through the phone if it's too hard here. I know I told
Always.
Josh I'm not going to do hard
One
things.
of these days, I'm gonna let you down.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
So
see
yeah, I
what's
have
going to happen.
a number of different outlets, but yeah, the Instagram's definitely where people that are coming to the Ice Expo will be most interested in looking at because that's all my fishing related content and decoys and apparel.
It's like Josh had this ready to go, you guys. It's like already on our screen. This is so funny. But I think it's really fun to be able to share some of this with you guys, because it really does give a good idea as we're talking about some of the stuff, what it looks like. So, we're talking about art, we're talking about decoys, but I mean, for every artist and for every person, I mean, I think that looks a little bit different. So, um, some really unique stuff.
Yeah. And everything, I think it'll be a little different than what most guys around Bago are probably used to seeing. Uh, my decoys, I put a lot of details into them, whether carving and painting, and they're also all weighted to actually swim, which not all sturgeon decoys are really weighted to swim. Most are just kind of weighted to sink and sit level. But these, if you put them in the water, they'll do a big slow circle. I started actually in more on the pike spearing side of things, going pike spearing in Michigan and Minnesota. So the swimming is really more important to those guys, especially versus sturgeon spearing, where it's not quite as important.
Well, and that's actually some really interesting detail to me because I'm not a spearer. So, I have an idea of like what I think a decoy could look like or what I think is neat. But, to hear somebody's expertise on like how it should swim or like how it should move, that's one of the reasons that you come and talk to people like you at the expo is to learn some of the stuff. We hear about pike spearing or, in other states, we hear about sturgeon spearing. And I think to so many people that's so foreign. And it's like, so often you need so many different things in order to start doing it. Like, fishing, they say, okay, just go and pick up a fishing rod and like go for it, but for spearing, it takes a lot more than that to make that happen. And if you don't know what you're purchasing, that makes that really difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, spearing is super foreign to people, especially here in southern Wisconsin, where even sturgeon spearing, there's not a lot of sturgeon spearers around here. Once you get further away from Bago, and then especially pike spearing, that's just super foreign to most Wisconsinites. But if you go to Minnesota or Michigan or North Dakota, like it's very popular there, and I just really enjoy it, and the functional art behind it, whether it's the spears or the ice saws, the decoys, everything's kind of handmade. It's a lot more low tech than a lot of different kinds of fishing is, and I just really enjoy that. And it's a little more relaxing. You can sit in a shack and you're just talking. You're not popping holes and running and gunning. It's you're hanging out, and it's kind of like almost like bow hunting. You're just waiting for something to come in, and you got a very small window that you're just looking straight down on a giant lake, and you're just hoping that there's a pike around and that the decoy you got down is the one that they're interested in. And sometimes they'll come in, real quick and strike at the decoy, or they'll just kind of hang out there. And sturgeon don't really obviously kind of strike the decoy, but they'll come in and nudge it or just be kind of swimming by. They're just more curious than they are where a pike is more aggressive and trying to actually eat whatever you got down there.
Okay, so this might be a stupid question, but I'm imagining I'm imagining what you're saying, and so if somebody is, got a hole in front of them, and I imagine like the sturgeon holes where they cut out like the giant square. I don't know why that's what I imagine, but I do. Okay, and then you're talking about like having the decoys swim down there, and that's like a whole lot of fun. What if you put like a bunch of little decoys down there? Like, do people do that? Like, is there a decoy limit per hole?
No, there's no limit. Like different states have line limits or different rules as far as if the decoy counts as a line or not. But and some states for pike spearing, you can have a hook on the decoy. That's called like a cheater decoy. So there's all sorts of rules depending on what state you're in for it. But as far as sturgeon spearing goes, I mean, I've seen guys swimming traditional decoys, the wood decoys like I carve, or they're swimming bowling pins or Barbie cars, or sat with a guy once that by the time the day was done, he just kept adding more stuff down. He had some goose decoys, a rubber shark, regular decoy, and I think something else down there. He just kept piling stuff on. So you're just trying to get them curious. There's curious old dinosaurs, so you just keep adding things down there.
I feel like in a weird way you were reading my mind because, like I said, I'm not super familiar with decoys, but I did go. Was that at Fargo last year? And we saw like a few tables that they had some different decoys out.
Hmm.
And so I imagine that was for pike. But some of these decoys were built with the funniest, like painted pie plates with golf balls and like
Yeah.
shiny things. And it's like, and it's like funny to see that. You're like, oh, maybe it's a gag. And it's like, no, they straight up use that. That's for real. But then you see people that are making what you're calling like functional art, and some of them are like super detailed to look
Hmm.
like a specific, fish, so specific in that water system, right down. I don't know, all the things. Or you have like brightly colored, crazy thing that looks like it's from the ocean, or you have like pile of golf balls, and
Yeah.
so, I didn't mean to ask like how many can you put down, but it's also begs the question of like what you put down there. But you're kind of seeming to explain like it just depends on the preference of the fish.
Hmm.
You never know.
Yeah. I'm more of a person that like I'll give a decoy like 15 minutes and then I'll switch it out. And I've definitely had days where for pike spear, and I'll keep referencing that. But like where every time I put down a new decoy, it seems like that was what got the next fish to come in and check it out. Like almost like they're just hanging out there waiting for something different to go down. And as soon as I put a new one down, then that one comes in, wait another 15 minutes, I'll put a new one down, another pike will come in, check it out. And so, yeah, it's just every day is a little different, and colors and all that. As far as the realistic decoys go, I do the National Fish Decoy Show in Perham, Minnesota every April. Actually on the board of directors for the NFDA. And yeah, that you'll see just the craziest, most detailed fish decoys that are more realistic than like my taxidermy mounts I got up here. I mean, that are all wood carved, just painted to look more like they just came out of the water. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So we'll have competitions there, and I always enter those and enter all the swimming competitions. So they're just judging on how well that decoy swims in a big tank, and the descent and the circle and all that. So.
And actually that's amazing to hear about. So if you come to the expo, come to the booth and ask about that, because we have heard a little bit about, it's the tiny little nuances when you come to a field of so many experts, and like you watch a competition like that and every decoy swims great. Like every decoy is like painted great, and every single decoy is like all of it. And so how do they make that decision? And then it comes down to the tiniest little tuning of, such intricate things. And that is really amazing. Like the art that goes into the art. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The judges in that are, they're looking at the smallest details, especially when they get to those top few fish. If it's in the realistic category, they're making sure you got like all the gill carvings right and the fin set right, and just every little detail has got to be correct. And as far as swimming goes, those are judged 90% on the swim and like 10% on the likeness of the fish. So that's just entirely how well that fish moves through the water. So
that's crazy. So I'm still stuck a little bit on Emily's question, like how many decoys can you have down there? And I thought for sure that somebody was going to bring up like a decoy umbrella rig where you have a bunch of like minnows, but then it's just on one string with wires so they don't get tangled, and then they all swim around.
So I've tried that. I'll have some what I call wiggle shad at the show.
Mm-hmm.
So they won't have the side fins, but they're still weighted the same. So like if you're letting them move, it'll do a big circle. But the line tie I set differently. So when you jig it, it'll do like a belly flip, like a dying shad. So I've tried that for sturgeon spearing, where I had a whole line of them. And when I jig them, I'd have like 3 or 4 shad kind of flipping up like they're all dying in the water and stuff. So there's, as far as that goes, I've tried it and I can't say I had any more luck with it, but
you just need to keep
funny.
trying it.
So
more minnows, I'm sure that's the answer.
My lone sturgeon I got on the racing sausage hot dog decoy that I made. So that was my lucky one there.
I think everybody will like that one.
Okay, I was just saying, let's show that. I didn't scroll that far when I found it. We're just going through Instagram for people that are interested, which is
so one of the things that I really do appreciate a lot about the folks at Bass Urban, the ones that are running the Wisconsin Fishing Expo, the ones that are putting on the Wisconsin Ice Fishing Expo, they really hold not only the sport of fishing in high regard, but they also hold the art. And so it's awesome that that they include not only you, but other artists too in this show. So you're not going there and just seeing tackle. You get to see some really great, talented artists like yourself. And decoys, in my opinion, are probably some of my most favorite fishing art because they are so functional, but they're also so unique to the artist. Even if you and another person were doing the same fish for the same fish for realism and swim, they would come out completely different and be totally awesome for the same, for different reasons, but also the same reason. And
for
that's
sure,
what I love about it.
at that fish decoy show, the classes will be like, say, a crappie, and you'll have 12 artists or whatever enter that, and they're all very realistic, but they all have little details that are different, and that you can definitely tell, like, once you start. I collect decoys, so I can definitely look at a decoy and I'll see it and be like, all right, I know just by looking at it, not even looking to see who signed it, I know who made that. Just, because everybody has their own little bit of style to how they do things. Whether it's the same fish, it's still going to look a little different.
Well, and they're so cool because, like, unlike a painting, these have 3 dimension to it, and they don't take up a whole lot of space.
Right.
You can a painting can be pretty big, and you put it up on the wall. You could fit a lot of decoys on a wall in the space of a painting, and so to have that much variety in something that's all pretty much the same, leave it alone. We're having a conversation here. Jiminy Christmas. And to have all that together, like, it's so cool. And one day we'll be able to put decoys on the wall. For now, that fish cat, wherever that thing is, that I can't trust that thing. That thing will be chewing on it.
Yeah.
But speaking of,
they're definitely a functional art. I have a map, like, of the U.S. in my carving shop. I'm in my little paint shop right now. And on that map, I mean, I have all throughout the U.S., definitely states where there is not ice being made. So I know they're not getting used. I put a little pin in every time I ship one out and sell it, like, through my Etsy and things like that. So I know at least half of what I make is probably just going on shelves and not getting used, but they're all still weighted and functional and could be put in the ice. But
that's awesome.
Well,
yeah, those were
funny there. Which one was your lucky one?
The hot dog. Yeah. So I've actually made a Bernie Brewer, and I don't know if you remember, like, Hank the ballpark pup that they found, like, years ago at spring training. I made that as a little decoy. I like doing the oddball stuff and seeing, if I can still get fish to come into them. And
that's awesome, to be honest. That's really funny.
There you go. You got it.
Well, but I like that there's a range, fish that feel like saltwater, fish that are definitely freshwater, fish that are just maybe artistic creation. But I mean, as you're scrolling through, is that a flathead even? Actually, that's a pretty cool one. Sorry, super distracted. But I mean, the thing about it is that you have a whole bunch of other artwork mixed in. So as far as, like, your booth at the expo, it's not going to be just decoys.
Right. Yeah, I've been trying to make as many decoys as I can. Like we were talking before the show, we got a 6-week-old baby, so that's been hindering my decoy carving time. But I hope to have at least probably 30 decoys at the show, probably 2 fish plaques that'll be carved also that you can just hang on the wall. Probably have a couple jig sticks, hopefully, that I also carve and paint. Then I'll have apparel like I'm wearing here. I screen print and design all my own apparel. I got some hats I've made for Wisconsin Spearin'. I'll have weatherproof decals. I just made some temporary tattoos that I'll give out to any kids that stop by my booth that are all like my fishing designs and things like that. So I'll have quite a range of stuff.
That's fun.
I want a tattoo.
I'll definitely give you one when you stop by. Yeah.
Young at heart.
Yeah. And then I do regular, just like blank cutouts of fish that I make on a scroll saw, and like those are fun for kids to paint and things like that too. So if they want to stop by and get just a regular blank fish to paint, they can do that too.
Oh, that's fun, actually.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Well, it'll be so close to Christmas. And so, I mean, when we're talking about anglers, the nice thing about an expo like this is nobody is going to have this fishing shirt. If you have that person on your list that is hard to buy for, or a kid that's trying to get into fishing, they don't have blank lures like this. They don't have, custom design t-shirts like this. So this is going to be a really fun opportunity coming right into the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have a mix of stuff. I'll have a few kid-size shirts. I've been making those too, but I'll have hoodies and regular t-shirts. And it's, like I said, everything is designed and made by me, and I'm picking what I think is the nicest, most comfortable stuff that I want to wear every day, and hopefully other people do too. And there's no there's no middleman for me as far as, I'm doing the design, I'm doing the printing, everything. So I think my prices are probably going to be a little better than most people are used to as far as buying nice apparel goes. So
That's cool.
yeah.
And let's say that somebody is looking for like a nice gift, something like a decoy. We've been looking at the website, all of these beautiful finished designs. But everybody does start with kind of blank wood cutouts. You're talking about doing that for kids, but that's where adult ones start too. So can you bring us a little bit through that process of how you take like a piece of wood and turn it into these beautiful designs?
Sure. So everything I'm using is cedar, and that's just because it's the most durable as far as, if it's already rot resistant, water resistant, things like that. I am sealing everything up after carving it, and then it gets primed and painted and then clear coated. So, I mean, they're very, very durable. They're meant to be used. Most common question I get is how long it takes, and that's a super open-ended. The biggest decoy I make is probably about 2 feet, and that's the antlered like pikealope, muskalope ones that I do. Those are probably like 40 hours worth of work altogether. A smaller one like these little worker pikes are probably 8 hours total. And that can range in detail. Like these, I don't have them scaled, but sometimes I'll scale the whole fish, and it just depends on what kind of level I'm wanting to do with them. Most of the ones I'm bringing to the expo, I'm keeping them kind of at that worker level and trying to make affordable and that guys will actually use. So most of them won't be scaled, but I'm still like carving in all the gill details and some of the sensory holes and things like that. So most of my decoys, I airbrush all the base layers and then hand paint in all the details. I just really enjoy hand painting, and I kind of fight with my airbrush on the smaller details, so it saves me a headache that way. I'll have kind of a mix of realistic stuff to kind of just funky things I've been working on that I think sturgeon guys will like, kind of brighter colors and whatnot. And like you were mentioning, like kind of tropical fish, I'll have some random stuff like that too. So this is a coney grouper that are found along the coastline. I'll have a sturge wrasse that's found in like Southeast Asia. So some really different funky stuff.
Apparently, this is a good spot.
For sure.
Oh
Oh
that's
my
the most
god.
comfortable spot.
Okay, so when we're talking about like paint jobs and stuff, like I mean, you're talking, it takes 8 hours to carve it or whatever. Okay. And first of all, it's like just seems like a random shape, but this is a perfect time to reminder that they are all functional decoys. And so even though it seems like, oh, you just got to like get close to a fish shape, it has to end up swimming in that right way.
Right. Not to like knock on some of the sturgeon decoys that are found around Bagel. Well, a lot of those are kind of blockier, and yeah, obviously they're not shaping them out as much and not caring quite as much about the shape on them. But I'm definitely, really rounding these down and trying to get, a true, trout shape or whatever fish I'm trying to model it after. So that does take some time to really bring it down to that level, and yeah, like you said, getting that right shape that it's going to swim correctly.
So that's something that I imagine you just kind of have down to a science because that just takes experience and that's just something that you have at this point, and that's like really super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go and you do that paint job, and that's kind of a fun thing because it's like I imagine like an experiment every time. Like you have something in mind and maybe you get it dead on, or like sometimes it turns into something just totally different.
Right. Yeah, I'll definitely play around with different stuff, and I'm usually making things kind of in groups. So I'll do like a group of pike shapes, and I know that one I'm going to do realistic, and then the others it's like I don't know until I sit down and start spraying paint or painting with a paintbrush. Like I don't really know exactly what I want to do, and I have an idea sometimes and things that I know like guys have asked me about. I quit doing custom orders a few years ago just because I couldn't keep up with it. But I know if like somebody said like, hey, if you ever make such and such, that's like in the back of my head. It's like, all right, if I paint this, I know this guy's, looking for that, and it'll probably go pretty quick. So
Okay, and so then what you do is you kind of like put the whole thing together. And so from here it looks like a bunch of the fins are like metal. So
Mhm.
I imagine that those are shapes that you've just kind of come down to like look fishy enough, but also are functional. And then once they're on, like, does that take a lot of tuning or just kind of you slap it on and it's good to go?
Not a whole lot of tuning. Like you said, I kind of got it down. Like I know in my head, like the approximate curves of things, and I've learned over the years, like as far as what angles to set things in to make sure that it swims nice. And I have kind of a lot of templates I've drawn out as far as the fins go, and I'm cutting those out of aluminum. If I'm going to leave it kind of more natural or unpainted, I'll cut it out of copper. But otherwise, it's usually one of those two. Then the fins are set in deep into the body. This will be for a plaque, so I don't have the lead cavity carved out of this. But they're set in deep to the body. So then when I pour the lead in, those side fins are set with the lead too. So they're really in there. And then it's also epoxied with a 2-part epoxy. So, I mean, they're really, really set into that wood good. So,
Do you guys? So I know the the decoy carving community is like kind of big, but also pretty small. Like
right.
as far as like a community of artists go. And so do you guys um communicate with each other and like
Oh, for
troubleshoot
sure.
a little bit? Because I know that you guys do the competitions, but
Hmm.
also everybody's trying to get a little bit better, and you can only do that if you know what's going on. So I wonder, do you guys talk and troubleshoot stuff?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, there's, like I said, Michigan, Minnesota are like really big for pike spearing. So there's a lot of carvers in those states and a lot of really, really talented carvers. And those are the guys that I'll see at the national show in April. But they also have smaller shows throughout the year that I just don't go to because it's too far of a drive. And we'll talk at those shows and we'll definitely critique each other's work. And those shows obviously push you to be better. You know, you come thinking you've made the best decoy, and then you see this other guy has brought it up another level, and it's like, ah, crap, like I got to do more, so that really pushes you. And then most winters I'll go to Minnesota. There's a group of us from throughout the Midwest that are just carvers that will go spearing up in northern Minnesota, and we'll critique each other's work there, and we do decoy exchanges, and we all collect each other's work. And so there's definitely a lot of communication going on. And there's obviously Facebook groups that are just strictly about fish decoys and spearing, and we all chat on there too.
That's awesome.
I was
Yeah.
just gonna joke that it's secretly like because it's a small community, it's like cutthroat. Like the only time you see each other is at the tournaments, and then you don't talk except for like feedback on events.
No, I
Well, and
think
I
we're also addicted to the spearing and the fish decoys, and we know that it's not super widely known, and not everybody's super supportive of pike spearing, especially here in Wisconsin. So we are a very tight knit group, and we definitely talk and we share information, and we want the sport to grow. And if somebody comes up to me at the Ice Fishing Expo and I'm not busy helping somebody else and they want to talk decoys and know exactly how I do everything, I will tell them every detail that they want to know about my work. And on my Instagram, I share a lot of like the progress pictures and stuff. So I mean, I'm an open book. I want more people to get into making decoys and the spearing, and I want this sport to grow and the art form to continue on. And so if anybody wants to ask me questions at the show, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Well, and the fun part, like, about this is we kind of circle back to where we started, is that not only is it a functional piece of fishing equipment, but it's also art. And so to be able to, it's one of those things where, yeah, you're competing against each other, but you're also, nobody can beat you at art.
Right.
It's all about what people's perspective is of it. And that's what the great thing about decoys is that sometimes you're talking about different types of painting and this and that. Like decoys there's no limit to what you can make. That, like, there's guys I've seen. I grew up in north central Minnesota, and I saw guys cut out pieces of aluminum and stuff them into just straight blocks of wood
Hmm.
sometimes. And just whether it was a joke or whether they forgot a decoy and they just did it just for something. But like that range is so cool. Just that I don't know. I get excited talking about it because I really like that form of art. It's something that speaks a lot to me. Is like not only like we build lures and rods and this and that, and all of that is really fun, but it's also meant to be something that you duplicate. And it's I feel like unless you're that specific artist, you can't duplicate decoys,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah.
that I think it's super cool.
Yeah, and it's all subjective. I mean, whether
Mhm.
everybody has their own preference, you know, like I got guys that like to collect my stuff or guys that like to collect other carvers' stuff, you know, like it's all what you like. And if it's the show, there's judges that have their own preference of what they like as far as the swim goes. There's definitely like regional preferences of the swim of a decoy. Minnesota guys like that decoy to be a little bit quicker and a little bit tighter turn. Michigan guys, which is kind of my style, we like it to be a little slower. We like to be able to have a sip of our beer while that decoy is still swimming down the hole. Sturgeon guys don't tend to care as much because they're just kind of letting it hang there. But guys that buy my decoys are always kind of surprised when they first give it a jig, and it's like, oh wow, like there's actually action to this decoy, and it gives you something to do when you're sitting there staring at the pea soup and bago and not seeing anything. So
Yeah.
Well, and pea soup on Bago means buy one of the brightly colored ones.
yeah. And again, it's all preference. I got guys that like black decoys, like just jet black and a splash of gold or something on the back, and they that's one time they had a fish come in on that and it was huge, and that's what they swear by. Everybody's just got their own preference on what works. So
That's so funny. Well, and I imagine like how many people go home then and then like further customize it. Maybe they have like some family secret. I don't know. Maybe some people just like put scent on it or something. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
But maybe
who
some
knows?
people like have, their fancy like a ribbon that they attach, or people have all kinds of funky little things that they swear by, and it's
yeah.
just funny to know. It makes me want to go and hang out in everybody's spear shack.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much sturgeon spearing you've done, but sturgeon guys are a lot more tight-lipped about what their secret, whatever trick is or spot. Like you definitely don't get as much sharing in the sturgeon community as you do with the pike spearing guys, but
That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that you were mentioning was, getting new people in the sport, because to be honest, I imagine that this is a niche, and so you don't see all that many people coming all that often. But one of the things is, I hope it isn't too hard of a question, but like, you mentioned like high school, you had wood carved or whatever. So somebody who is like just starting, or like a youth, or I'm not going to invest in all of the wood carving equipment and make a paint shop until I know. So like what is the most basic way that you can get started and explore a hobby like this?
So when I first started, I actually pretty much where I'm sitting, I had a workbench. This is a room I made in my garage for my paint room, but I had just a regular workbench and a very old Dremel with just a regular sanding bit on it. And I shaped fish that way. It was very messy. I got sawdust all over my wife's car. But that was as basic as you could get, a little $20 Dremel probably. And just doing it that way and melting lead, and first ones didn't swim the best, but you just figure it out as you go, and as you can afford more and adding more on and growing with it. But you can definitely get super basic with, you don't have to shape it that much, and fish don't really necessarily always care about the swim. Sometimes something that swims like what you think doesn't swim great, hey, that's the ticket that day to get a certain fish interested. So
Well, you just have to mimic a dying fish, right?
yeah, or anything. Yeah, or just letting it hang there. Some guys don't really like to swim it. They'll just let it hang there, and that still works. A fish will come in and check it out. And I know a very prominent carver in North Dakota. He only paints with rattle can, Rust-Oleum spray paint, and that's what he does. And he's very, very talented with what he can do with a rattle can on a decoy, and that's a very inexpensive way to do it.
I was sitting here thinking about, the steps in the process. And I'm like, okay, so I imagine that you can go and get like, I don't know, any old wood. Like if you're just experimenting, like fine, you can probably, I don't know, look it up online. Maybe you could be more successful picking up something specific.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a cottonwood tree outside. I don't know. Maybe that's too small for, um, But then I was like, I got to the part where you said lead, melting the lead. I'm like, okay, that's hard. But I mean, that's a part that you cannot skip though, because that's the thing
Right.
about a decoy is that it cannot just float on the top.
Right. Yeah. And every wood buoyance will be different. And I wouldn't use every kind of wood for a working decoy. I know a lot of people when they first start out like to use, like, say, basswood because it's super easy to carve. But the moment that thing gets in the water, if it is not 100% sealed, it's just going to implode on you and come apart and crack. So like I said, I use all cedar because it's already water resistant. I'm already a step ahead there, but I'm doing all those other steps to seal it and coat it and prime it and then clear coat it after I painted it. So that's best. Tupelo is a nice carving wood that I know guys that are doing more decorative, that they know like this isn't going to go in the water. It's a $500 decoy. It's going on the shelf. They'll carve with something like that. But white pine's another decent one for if you're going to make a worker. But I would definitely say sticking within cedar or white pine is best for worker decoys.
There you go.
Yeah, there. I know it makes me want to just like make one as if it was that easy.
Yeah, and as far as like melting the lead, I know guys that don't have a little lead pot to melt them in. That'll just take fish weights, and they're just like gluing them one at a time and checking it in a little tank and seeing how it swims and getting it to at least sink, and you don't need much more than that. We kind of overthink it sometimes as far as the swim or the decorative goes, and like I said, you never know exactly what's going to get a fish interested as far as color or the style of swim. As long as you get it down in the water, you don't want it floating on top. But
well, and the cool part about if anybody out there is really looking to get into carving, and one of your hangups is the lead thing, the lead part of the decoy building is actually probably one of the more versatile parts that you would invest in. You can use that for a ton of different fishing applications, whether it's doing the decoys, building lures, building or pouring jigs, and
weights,
and really you could go to a garage sale, get a bunch of old jig heads or just a bunch of old lead weights, go to Goodwill, get a stainless steel ladle, and just melt it on a turkey, like a turkey fryer.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to be super difficult. But if you weren't going to invest in something that was lead pouring specific, it does have a lot of uses. So don't make, and it's pretty easy as long as you take the right safety precautions. And so don't let that be a barrier to this.
Yeah, I do all my lead pouring outside just year round. Even if it's middle of winter, I'll still be pouring it outside just to be a little extra safe with it. And yeah, those Lee lead pots aren't that expensive. I think the last one I bought was maybe $70 with a little pour spout on it. And I know they make a more simple model than that.
I was going to say, and that's for the fancy one.
Yeah. And as far as the lead goes, buy clean lead if you can. I know a lot of guys like, I can get free wheel well weights. Well, there's so much other gunk on those that you'll quickly, if you bought a pot, you're going to quickly burn it out because it's so much buildup of other garbage in there that's not the clean lead.
After this conversation, I'm still excited to try to make my own one day. And we have just enough time to get through that process and realize how hard it is and buy one instead at the expo. But I mean, I guess as far as all of this goes, like, what have I missed? What should I have asked you that I haven't yet?
I don't know. I mean, I could talk forever about spearing or anything. Like I said, if people want to come up to the show and talk to me, I'll have a little photo album too of different decoys I've made, different stuff from spearing, guys that have gotten fish. I had a black bear stalk me across the ice a few winters ago. So if guys want to hear that story, they can come up and hear it. And definitely looking forward to the show and talking to people.
That's awesome.
Well, we're definitely going to bump into you at the show, and I'm going to ask you about one of those stories because that's going to be super funny. I want to hear about that bear, I think. But I can see that Josh is digging in the bag here for some giveaways. So for people who are tuning in, get your comment in sometime, I don't know, during the show or just after, and then you'll be eligible to win one of these prizes. While Josh is still digging this out, Ryan, do you have social media or website, or how do people follow you or tune into the cool stuff that you're doing?
For the Ice Expo guys, they're most interested going to be my Instagram for sure. That's for strictly like fishing, decoys, apparel, it's a little bit of hunting in there. But that's definitely where guys will like the most. My Etsy, Ryan Ebert Art, that's where I sell a lot of decoys and apparel and all the stuff I make. I do have a website, but that's kind of a mix of everything. That's ebertphoto.com. And then I have a Facebook page that leans a little bit more towards my photography design side of stuff. So definitely for guys for the Ice Expo, the Instagram and Etsy is going to be their best things to follow.
Awesome.
Perfect. And actually, we were trying to get a few of those links into the comments here because it was easy to do. And so we typed that in so people are able to just look down there and click that and go and check that out. I know right after the show, I'm definitely going to as well. And as far as this giveaway, what do you got here for us tonight, Josh?
Hey, we got the magic money bag. Still has some prizes in it.
That is true.
Mm-hmm. So you got to grab 2 tonight.
Alrighty. So what we have
First
here.
one.
Well, you can see both already. We have a hat here, actually a dangler hat. So if you've never tried a dangler, I wish I pulled out a dangler. Is there even one in there? Yeah. But it is like really cool rod holder, and I can't even, it's way more than a rod holder.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a rod holder tip down type thing.
So that's a pretty cool thing. And then we also have a whole bunch of bobbers. So 'tis the season coming up here. And kind of some random stuff, but that's always what gets pulled out of the bag is random stuff. So if you'd like to be entered, put your name or check in or whatever into the comments. And I don't know what else.
That's it. That's all I got.
So I guess with that, well, I was going to say to the people at home, but I feel like I should thank Ryan for being here first. Yeah. Thank you for spending all this time with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I enjoyed talking to you guys, and looking forward to meeting you and everybody else in person.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that. And hopefully everyone that was here tonight is going to meet us all in person at the expo because that's going to be fun. And to the people at home, thank you for being here because this is always a huge part of the fun. Your questions and comments and things along the way always crack me up. So thank you for joining us. And join us next week when we have 2 more episodes of The Night Bite.
Good night, everybody.